And I think we are live. What is going on, everybody? Welcome here on Tuesday, August 5th. I will warn you guys right now, my brain is just a little bit fuzzy today because my wife and I flew back from Milwaukee, Wisconsin here at 6 a.m. was our flight. We've been up since 4. So it's been a day, but we are rocking and rolling, man. Joe, you know how it is, man. Nothing can stop you, right? So, guys, I've got a really, really cool guest for us today. If you don't know Joe Roberts, you have been living under a rock because this guy has made a massive splash of land since he started showing up publicly, I'd say, in about 2023. This guy scaled up his own land business pretty quickly into a multi six-figure operation, realized nobody was doing it well with cold calling, started a cold calling company, did a little bit of too good of a job, and it grew like wildfire. I always say good products are the best form of marketing. So, Joe, testament to the fact that you've done a great job. This guy's got a background like you wouldn't believe. It is going to be so fun diving into who he is, what he's offering, and trying to steal all his best practices as we're sitting here, right? Now, with that being said, welcome so much. Welcome. Thank you so much, Joe. I appreciate you being here today. Why don't you just kick us off? Tell us a little bit about your background, your transition from former military, big family man, into land, into cold calling. Just give it to us.
All right, I'll try to give you the relatively condensed version. So, yeah, I was a former Marine. I was active duty for 11 years. I was a helicopter pilot. I flew the AH-1 Whiskey Super Cobra, so it's an attack helicopter in the Marine Corps.
Golly.
So did that for 11 years. Had a number of deployments. I spent my last few years with Special Forces, Marine Corps Special Forces Command. On one of my deployments to Afghanistan, I got really interested in real estate. When you're sitting on a forward operating base in the middle of the desert, you got a lot of time on your hands when you're not out on mission. I just started to do a lot of reading and realized I wanted to get into real estate. So when I got back from that deployment, this is 2018, 2019 timeframe, I started to buy single family rentals. I bought really junky properties, renovated them, rented them out, refinanced, repeated, the whole burr thing that really only works in like a zero interest rate environment typically, but I was at the right place at the right time. So I was able to build up a nice little rental portfolio, and that was definitely just gave me the itch to scratch for real estate. I knew I wanted to be in real estate. Fast forward a couple of years, and I built up that portfolio, and I was looking to expand and do something else. The markets was starting to get really crazy there at the beginning of COVID.
Yeah.
And happened to meet a land flipper at a real estate conference, and I had not heard of land flipping,
Can I
but
ask who,
I
who
was
was it? Is it
intrigued.
anybody we know?
I'm pretty sure you know him, my good buddy JT Olmstead.
Oh, of course, man. JT's a
Yes,
good friend. That's awesome. I
yes,
love JT.
love JT. I don't know if you've had him on, but if you haven't, you should.
I should.
We I just actually got to see JT at the conference you and I saw each other at last
Yeah.
month in Colorado. So yeah, it was JT. We literally just, I mean, it was a huge conference. It was a Bigger Pockets conference, and we just
Okay.
happened to be sitting at the same table for lunch of like 80 tables there,
You're
and
kidding.
it was, yeah, meant to be. I got was able to pick his brain for a few hours that evening over drinks, and I was hooked. So I kind of shifted what I was doing with homes in terms of I was doing direct mailers for homes. I just shifted that over to land, made some adjustments based on some stuff that JT taught me, and was kind of off to the races with that. So
Wait, so you're telling me we have JT Olmstead to thank for Land Caller's existence? Is that what you're
yeah,
telling me?
you absolutely do.
In a
Yes,
way.
yes, you
Okay, okay,
absolutely
keep us
do.
going.
So I'm still active duty at this time, getting ready to deploy again, which would end up being my last deployment. I've deployed 3 times in the last 4 years, and I built this land, kind of built up the land business while I was deployed again. Hired some assistants to help me since obviously I was working full time as a Marine, but you know, actually when you're deployed, you actually have more time, at least for me as a family guy, than I did back home. Because most guys in their downtime when they're deployed, they just, watch Breaking Bad for the third time, or, play video games or whatever. You don't have, there's no place to go. There's nothing to do if you're not on mission or you're not working. But for me, I just kind of poured it all into building the business. So
Wow.
that really had a great first year. That and the passive income that was rolling in from my rentals gave me the confidence to be like, I can kind of set out on my own here. So I ended up resigning my commission. Officers serve at the pleasure of the president. So you just keep going until you resign or they kick you out. But in this case, I said, thank you, but I'm going to move on to other things. Got back. And right when I got back from that deployment, my fifth kid was born that month.
Wow.
And I'm now at about 8 months out from when I've said I'm going to get out of the Marine Corps. Well, that also happened to be the time right around then is when things started to get a little crazy in the land space. And for guys that have been in it for a while, you saw a lot of your KPIs and metrics when it came to mail just start to kind of fall off a cliff for a lot of people.
Tanked. Oh yeah, like
Um,
cut down by, we used to get 1% response rates,
yeah,
right? Sometimes more, like
I was
early.
gonna say I was getting like 2% response rates
Yeah.
my whole first year.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh. I was gonna say, yeah, there were some campaigns 2 to 4 if you were way back before
yeah,
2020, even, right?
yeah.
And now I know people that will send out blind offer campaigns and they get 0.1 to 0.3%, maybe 0.4 if you're really, really good. And
Yeah.
that's responses. So half of those are, screw
Yeah,
yous, right? So you have to be
exactly.
sending out a mass amount of volume. The guys I know that are destroying it still and are mostly blind offer shops, they're all sending between what 25,000 and 100,000 letters a month,
Yep.
right? At a minimum. I mean,
Yep.
anybody doing under that just does not have regular deal flow. But I'm sorry, it's just
No,
you're totally
it's a
right.
good little segue because that's what I was seeing. And all of a sudden I was like starting to get a little bit worried because here's what I'm betting on myself on, and I'm betting that I'm going to be able to use to take care of my family, this business. And things are all of a sudden shifting right as I'm approaching the time where I'm no longer getting that government paycheck every 2 weeks. So I knew I had to turn it into a real business. And that meant I needed to build some resiliency into it. So I just started to look around. Okay, what are my other options for consistent deal flow if direct mail is not going to hit it the same way it had been? So I tried texting for a bit, didn't love it. It was too much work and junky leads and so much ghosting. And I'm a talker, so there was there was a county that I had worked a few times, and all my best deals had come from it. I was like, there's some neighborhoods in there I just really want to be. I was like, let me just call some of these people. So I did that, and over the course of like a month, I landed like 3 incredible deals. And I was like, all right, so cold calling works because these were all people that had probably received 4 to 6 mailers from me over the course of the year, that
Uh,
I'd never responded. But then I look them up on truepeoplesearch.com for free and call them, and all of a sudden I'm like making deals. Like, okay, so this works. This is pretty sweet. So at first I tried to bring it in house because I didn't want to cold call
really? You
with
didn't
some
want to sit
VAs.
there and just pound the phones all day, man? Just
Don't get me wrong. I love like a good negotiation call. I do love getting on calls with especially like a really juicy deal. But cold
oh yeah.
calling for anybody that's done it is the literal worst.
Brutal.
It's
Yeah,
brutal.
it's brutal. There's some good money in it if you're willing to
Uh,
do it, but it's
yeah,
brutal.
it's brutal. And as the business owner and trying to build, a business, not a job, it's not a repeatable process to be like, well, if I'm not dialing, I'm not making money. Like I want this business to make money when I'm not doing things.
Totally.
So I tried to hire some VAs, some very good VAs, and bring it in house. It still worked, but I started to realize like there were all these things that I just didn't know about how to run like a at scale successful cold call campaign. First of all,
Okay.
there was all like the legal stuff, which I was just fire hose trying to learn and make sure I'm staying compliant. And then there was all this really minutia about the dialer and how to structure your dialer settings and how often to call. And then there was the hiring process and then the training, and then listening to all these calls to make sure that they're doing the right things. They're saying the script, that I can provide feedback and quality assurance. And I was like, I had no time to run my land business because I was a call center manager. So I was like, all right, I really don't like this either. I'm just going to outsource this. So I emailed a good friend of mine who I'm sure actually, Seth Williams.
Yep.
And I said, Seth, Hey, this is what's going on. I've been testing cold calling. It's awesome. I searched through your podcast. I didn't see that you've interviewed anybody about cold calling, but like I'm sure there's a company out here doing this, right? Who can I outsource this to, Seth? Seth was like, I don't think there's anybody that's doing it for land. So I tried to outsource to a couple other companies that do mostly single family homes. Didn't have a great success. They just didn't understand the niche. And that's kind of the genesis behind. I finally sat down with my wife. I was like, I think I'm going to build a cold calling company because if I could use this, I'm sure there's going to be some other land investors that could also use it. And that was the genesis behind launching Land Caller. So the first client was me and my land business. And I've been a client for the last 2.5, almost 2.5 plus years. And then they're the only leads my land business has used since I launched. So I stopped
Sweet.
direct mail shortly after.
That is awesome. Well,
So
congratulations on getting it going. Guys, I want to point out a theme about Joe here that you may not be catching just as this guy is talking, right? He would start the conversation and say, okay, here was this problem that I wanted to solve. I didn't want to, just jerk around and watch Breaking Bad all day. So I put my energy into my business and it was going well. And then direct mail started to tank. So instead of complaining like 99% of people do, instead, this guy was like, great, I'm just going to go ahead and call people on True People Search, which is like an extremely manual but free way to get things going, right? And then you went on to say, well, I should just go ahead and bring this in house so I can turn this into a business instead of a job. And then you said, I actually need to go get good at this, right? So, like, I just want to point out the trend that Joe does what I see so many winners do, right? It's that mindset of like, oh, new problem in front of me, solve that problem. And that's how we continue to evolve as business owners. And now to the point where I'm sure as you have ran both your land business and land caller, new problems had uncovered themselves, and not just by you pursuing a better life, but just by the business existing, because landscapes change, right? Direct mail rates go down. In cold calling, we've talked about compliance things, right? Like that's a whole can of worms that I'd love to talk a little bit about while we're on this, honestly, and just figure out what's going on today and how we make sure we're all safe and protected as we're working with you. And I know you're doing things to protect yourself as well, so definitely want to talk more about that. But let's go down and let's actually talk about for a second, if you're comfortable sharing a snapshot of like roughly how many callers or how many investors do you work with, how many callers do you manage. Like I want people to understand the gravity of what it is you do and how many people trust you as their marketing partner in their business.
sure, yeah. So in terms of lifetime call it clients, that's actually an interesting question. I should probably look that up. I mean, many hundreds. We might be over the 1,000 mark of lifetime clients. As you know, RJ, people they cycle in and out of this industry. So there are lots of our clients who got into land, did it for a little bit, didn't like it, or didn't want to put in the work to make it a real business. Unfortunately, they listened to a guru somewhere that told them that it was an easy way to make money and get rich quick, and they cycle out. So we have had plenty of those clients, but we've also I was looking at the numbers the other day. I think over 25% of our clients have now been with us since our first year of launch, which if you know anything about like startups and stuff, that's actually a really good number. And I'm really proud of our team for that. Just the number of people that came to us when we were definitely still figuring things out and then have stayed with us and grown just because of the quality of the product we've provided. Currently, I think we're sitting right around about 100 active clients somewhere. It fluctuates. Somebody might pause and whatnot and come back, but active clients, we're right in the 80 to 110 clients range on average for the last quarter.
That's nuts, man. So you've got 100 land investors that are actively saying, hey, Joe, this is our marketing partner right here. Help us bring in leads. I love that, man.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool too because it's a pretty wide range of investors. I would say the biggest group of that is obviously kind of your more traditional flipper, but we have quite a few relationships now with builders in a lot of markets. Some very large regional land development companies. I mean, we're talking 8, 9 figure companies. We've got land realtors that are working with us. So really it's works for kind of anybody in the land professional space.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Um, Joe, I want to transition to into like drilling down on your retention is something that makes you very different than a lot of other cold calling companies that I hear about, because the reality is, I mean, there's two problems most investors run into when they're trying to grow their acquisitions in their business, right? You either have a leads problem or a conversion problem, is what I like to say. So if you've got a leads problem in your business, I send people your way all the time very happily, right? And I'm happy that we've got a good working relationship because a lot of my clients in the inner circle that work with you get deals. And that's all I need to know to make sure, hey, it's not a leads problem. On the flip side, if you've got a conversion problem, that's where you come work with me, right? And we learn how to convert some deals, talk scripting, negotiations, call reviews, all that jazz. But my question for you is, man, how is it that you have consistently made sure that land investors are getting leads? Because there's a few points where cold calling fails. On the front end, for those that don't know, it is an extremely active hiring, recruiting, retention business. I mean, because it's a brutal job. We just said it. Well, that transfers over at the VA level as well. That's actually doing the cold calls. So you've got to be really good at recruiting, which inherently to get them performing means you need to be really good at training, right? Let's start there, right?
Okay.
What are you guys doing to stay competitive on that side? And what I want to point out to people is the work that it takes to run this machine. So many people are like, well, I could just hire a cold caller for, $4, $5, $6 an hour, Joe. Why don't I just do it myself? And hey, some people should, most should not, is the reality, right? And I'm trying to open up as to here's why. So could you speak to that?
Yeah. I mean, it's very multifaceted. So what I'll start with is to the point that we're going to keep reiterating, it is a brutal business, and the lifespan of a cold caller typically is less than 2 months for somebody doing it full time.
That's nuts. 2 months.
We
Every 2 months, I got to hire someone new, train them up, get them performing at week 3, only for them to leave 5 weeks later, is what
Yeah,
I'm.
yeah.
That's brutal.
Exactly. Exactly. So whereas ours is somewhere between 6 and 9 months on average, and we have callers that have been with us
Wow.
since the beginning. So we have on average for industry average anywhere from 3 to 4 times kind of the typical lifespan. So that starts with culture and pay. Like first of all, pay is if you get what you pay for, right? So somebody making $3 an hour, like a lot of our competitors use, like you get what you pay for. They're going to eventually realize that if they're good at this, they can go get paid more later. So in our markets, we are, if not the highest paying call center, we're up there in the top 5 to 10%. So
Nice.
we pay them well, and then we establish a culture that, I mean, is a place where people want to work. So, for instance, all of our employees get health savings accounts. That's not something
That's cool.
international employee is typically aware of, where essentially we contribute automatically every month, employer upfront, and even though they're technically a 1099 to us because they're overseas, and if they have any medical issues or over the counter medicine they need to buy or anything, it can come out of that account. They get paid time off almost immediately upon starting to work with us after a short probationary period. We make sure that because a lot of these people are supporting multiple families on their salary. So we recognize the importance of family. So culture is super important. That starts with managers, hiring managers that are on board with your vision and making sure that they're treating their people in the same way that you're treating them, right? So that's got to be a filter down effect. Now, how do we take? So we find good callers, and we keep good callers. How do we train good callers? It starts with a pretty intensive multi-week training process, and then into a probationary period where they're still not calling for active clients. Well, they're calling for active clients, but only in a supplementary way. So a client
Okay.
would be essentially clients get free additional calls because we'll have a probationary caller working on their account, getting live feedback training from their trainer on those calls. So that they're talking with real people. But the few weeks prior to that, they go through first a week of classroom stuff where we have material to train them on, okay, first of all, what is land investing? What do our typical clients look like? Why are these people even hiring us? What does this niche look like? What are people doing with these properties? Just so they exit that training with a pretty good understanding of the space in general. Because it's really hard. A cold caller needs to follow a script, and they also need to be able to think on their feet to a certain extent.
Totally.
And it's really hard to think on your feet when you have no idea what you're even calling these people about. Because it's one thing to call them and like run through a script. It's another to understand, like, why does my client want this information and what are they going to do with it?
Right.
Because that allows you to pick up on things from the lead and ask probing questions and gather those detailed notes that really help our clients out.
Absolutely. Can I actually drill down on something here too as we're
Yes.
talking about this? Because there's this big training component you're getting into, right? What people a lot of times will do is hire a cold caller off of Upwork or something, give them a script, maybe give them a dialer and say, okay, go bring me leads, whatever that means, right? And
Yeah.
so I want to drill down on one piece of training here that I think is actually really important in today's like ecosystem. So many people have hired, Philippines is great. The English is kind of distinct and the vocabulary can be very different, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was working with another cold call team not too long ago. I do sales training across multiple teams, and one of them had a team in house, and I was like, cool, let me work with them a bit. And I did. And a thing I noticed listening to their call was some words they didn't pick up on, where like, oh, they didn't know what commercial meant. They didn't know what cattle were, right? Oftentimes we hear like your 1 acre's property, right? It's like that little language
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Can I ask, what are you guys doing on that side? Like, do you have a glossary?
Oh
Are
yeah.
you just internally training? Can you speak to what
That's
training looks
that's
like for
all
people?
that's all that first week. Very extensive glossary.
Okay.
Very, and then they're spend a lot of time with their trainers running through scenarios. First with some basic AI training, and then with a live trainer who's obviously very experienced and can throw them a lot of curveballs. But all those nuances and those types of things are a big part of the difference between what you get between a professional call center and hiring somebody off Upwork. Now, you can take that person off Upwork and get them to that point yourself. It's just a matter of whether you want to take the time to develop those tools to do so. But
Right.
if you hire somebody off the street, don't expect them to come into a space and start using terms or that they've never heard before in a correct grammatical way that's going to make the person on the other end of the line be like, oh yeah, this is somebody that's serious. you know
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
three, yeah, yeah. Your
No,
half
keep going.
acres property, and it's
Yeah.
like, what are you talking about? And on the note, I love Filipinos. I was deployed to the Philippines once
Oh
upon a
wow.
time. I have many friends there. We have many people on our team at Landcaller who are Filipino, not in a calling capacity. We had a Filipino call center. We shut it down after about 6 to 9 months because culturally they do not make good cold callers,
Hmm.
and that is because it is in an Asian culture. It's a more submissive attitude on the phone, a more passive attitude. That's why they make great inbound call answering. But
Hmm.
cold calling, you need to have a sales mindset, and that requires a certain amount of inherent aggression, controlled aggression, that sales aggression on the phone to get after the information that you need, in a tactful way that is really just lacking culturally in the Philippines. So just a kind of side note, since you mentioned the Philippines, I never recommend people hire. If you're going to hire yourself, don't look to the Philippines for an outbound cold caller, in my
Hmm.
opinion.
Can I ask where do
There's
you
tons
guys
of other roles where they're fantastic, just not cold calling.
so what areas or regions do you see cold callers being successful?
So probably so Egypt is a fantastic one because they speak English really well, British English, right? British colony for a long time. have
British colony for a
a
long
more
time.
aggressive mindset. Yeah. South Africa as well is a great location. And then we really love our Belize
Okay.
callers, our Belize center. Belize, for anybody that doesn't know, is a native English speaking country in South America, the only one actually. So it's located right next to Mexico. It was also a British colony. And so English is the first language. There are quite a number of Belizeans that also speak Spanish. They're bilingual, but everybody speaks English. And something like 60% of Belizeans have spent time in the U.S., gone to school here, or have family here. So there's significant shared cultural understanding because of their proximity to the U.S. and all the shared ties. So it allows them to kind of get into the mind of the American consumer a little bit better than other locations.
Okay. Okay. Um, yeah, man, that makes a lot of sense actually. And I've trained some teams from Egypt and South Africa. I will say I really like South Africa right now from just a VA perspective. They're more expensive than a Filipino hire, but they're a lot less expensive than an American hire. And like the level of comprehension that they have over in South Africa, they just get it fast,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I've not worked with a bunch of Belize teams, but it sounds like that's a gold mine there. I know it's a little bit of a smaller country that knows English well, right?
Yeah.
Is it a primary language you said with?
Yeah, it is the national language. It's
Okay,
everybody. Yeah, it's their primary language. So
interesting. Okay,
yeah.
that's super helpful. So I want to hit a couple sort of more anecdotal areas, and then I might drill down on like some KPI type stuff with you. But can I ask Joe, like, out of all of your clients, and obviously you don't need to name who these people might be, but like, what's the most amount of callers some of your clients have with you? Obviously, successful clients should have more than one. I'm sure plenty of people do have one. It's 80-20. So ironically, some of your best customers is going to be that top 20% that probably have 3 to 6 callers if I was guessing, and then the other 80% have kind of one, and they're probably the ones that churn the most if I had to guess. So feel free to tell
Yeah.
me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I'm on the outside here.
No,
But,
you're spot on.
okay.
So I think our largest client currently is six callers.
Okay.
We have a few in the 4 to 5 caller range, quite a few with like 2 to 3.
Okay. Nice.
And I would say probably like 70%, maybe a little bit less, maybe 65% have a single caller.
Okay, got it. And then, like, what are you seeing in terms of success for people? Obviously, you're incentivized to be like, more callers, more business, baby, right? But at the same time, can you speak to like where do you really see it click for a lot of investors where they begin getting a lot of regular business, right? Because man, the reality is, Joe, you want your clients to make money because if they don't, they can't continue to pay you. So there's a win-win
Yeah.
here, which is also why you've done a fantastic job with quality control, which I've not seen with many other agencies over time. In fact, the stereotype. I mean, there are some in the house world, right? So not speaking about any other folks in land, but I've heard a lot of horror stories in the house world where you can imagine so many people hire the $4 cold call agency and they all work Miami or they all work South Florida or whatever, and they'll like share the leads, which is like
Mm-hmm.
abhorrent. Like I am,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So you just hear these horror stories where they're like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna all the leads I got for you, I'm just gonna give to this investor. And I'm like, dude, what? And your
Yeah.
reaction is exactly what I was hoping you would do. So that's great. I'd be a little
Yeah.
worried if you got real bug-eyed and like just walked away or something. But to that point, Joe, where do you see people really start to click in terms of either lead flow or how many callers or just whatever you see as somebody that's like a synthesizer in the industry because you see so many teams?
I mean, we have really successful clients with a single caller, right? It's all about like what is their like we have clients with a single caller, but they're doing their business model is they're buying like mid to high 6-figure properties. So they may
Okay.
only put one property under contract a month or maybe once every 2 months, but they have 7-figure net profit businesses because of the type of business they have set up. So it
Yeah.
can certainly be done with one caller if that's your model. We have other very successful investors who are kind of going for volume, like their net profit on deal might only be 7 to 20K, but they're doing 30 deals a month, right? So it really depends on what's your business model on the other side. And I to your point earlier about like, well, more callers, more money for me. I mean, yes, but I want my clients to be successful. Like I just was on a call maybe 2 weeks ago with one of our oldest clients, and she's had 3 callers with us for almost 2 years now.
Wow.
And we were going over her KPIs and stuff, and I was like, I don't think you need 3 callers. You're not giving us enough data for 3 callers. I was like, so we really have a choice here. Like you can expand into more markets and broaden your search criteria for properties, or you need to drop a caller because we really only have work here for like two full-time callers, and we don't really need 3. And she
Wow.
kind of looked at it and was like, you know what, you're right. I don't, yeah, there's not really any other states or markets. I like where I'm at. So let's drop down to 2 callers. So data is so vital to understand in the cold calling game. First of all, back to your point like a while ago of like, how do you consistently supply leads? After the callers, data. You have to have good data. If you don't have good records, and then if you don't skip trace correctly, you don't get leads, because if either of those aren't good, you're just not talking to people. And
Right.
so and you have to have enough data. Cold calling, unless you're doing like a sniper approach, which I'd never recommend you hire out to a service. You just do that in house or train somebody up in house and pay them well, because those are the completely different type of cold calling. But volume cold calling, which is what we do, you need a substantial amount of records to create leads. And so a full-time cold caller really needs about 10,000 records, fresh records a month, to kind of optimally extract all the leads from that list. So you've got to look at your markets, and if you're being super selective, then we may not be a good fit for you.
So can you drill down then, Joe, on I saw somebody just ask in the comments as well. How much data are you recommending people? And can we talk both like before and after some level of scrubbing? I know you like
Yeah,
touched on it, but I want to take
yeah,
it a layer deeper even of like how much you know how it goes, man. You pull this big list, then you got to skip trace, and then you've only got so much left. So talk about the record counts from beginning to end.
yeah. So that's actually kind of a hot topic recently, because we've made a bunch of recent kind of shifts there that have to do with do not call lists. So it gets into some of the more recent legal stuff. So this might be a little long winded, but break
Go
me up.
ahead. Give it
Like,
to us.
so the bottom line is you want around 8 to 12,000 records when you're all said and done, loaded into the dialer for a full-time cold caller every month. That's where, if you're looking at it on like a 4-week rotation, that's where at the end of those 4 weeks, you should really see your KPIs fall off a cliff, which means you've kind of optimized the lead flow for those 4 weeks, right? It's a gradual downward trend. So how do we get to 8 to 12,000? What we used to do is you just take records, you skip trace. Typically, you see about a 90, anywhere from an 85 to 95% hit rate based on how many LLCs are in there, and different areas of the country and that sort of thing. So it was pretty easy to gauge. You need about an extra 10% over that number, because you're going to lose that much to skip tracing. The last year and a half, and really the last 6 months, have seen an explosion in TCPA, Telephone Consumer Protection Act lawsuits, and specifically an explosion in class action lawsuits. Okay. And I encourage you to hop on ChatGPT and start asking it some questions about the implications of a class action lawsuit versus just a typical lawsuit. The
Yeah.
implications are massive. They have years of discovery that you have to turn over.
Gee.
They get to take, if they get discovery, and they get to take everybody you've reached out to and go reach out to them and essentially build their class action off your data. People that were perfectly happy before can now get contacted by a lawyer and say, hey, remember when you got that call? Did you know that we're filing a class action? Would you like to join? But right. So you're looking at a minimum of 6 figures in defense, even if you are correct. So cold calling has
Wow.
always operated with the very clear legal precedent up until recently that when you're calling to make an offer to purchase, you're not telemarketing. And so in the past, we would call people that were on the do not call list because we were not telemarketing, and that do not call list is for telemarketing. Unfortunately, there's been a couple of conflicting cases recently, still just district courts, but they directly contradict other district courts, would say, well, you're actually providing a service because you're buying it under market value, but you're doing it in a quick and easy way. And that's the service you're providing. Some very stretched legal stuff that most lawyers don't agree with. But the problem is that all somebody has to do is threaten the lawsuit, and specifically threaten a class action. Because a lawsuit, well, you can settle that for like $1,500 typically. Hey, $1,500 go away because the fine was only 2,500 or whatever. And right. But a class action, you've got to get lawyers involved right off the bat, or else you're screwed. And you're looking at, like I said, typically 6 figures of defense fees.
Right.
So what does that all mean? It means that land caller is now taking the extra step of not calling people who are on the do not call list, because there's been about a 250% increase over the last 2 years in class action lawsuit filings against real estate investors for TCPA litigation. And that's like, there's hundreds being filed a month, hundreds. And that'll destroy, most of our clients are not in a position to defend that type of thing. It would destroy their business. So we are defaulting to, we will not call if they're on the do not call list. Now, we are allowing our clients to opt out of that as long as they sign a waiver of liability, essentially, that says, I want land caller to do this. I recognize there's legal risks, blah, 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 blah. But if you're going to go the more safe route, you're going to lose anywhere from an additional 30 to 40 typically percent of your records to that do not call list. So
Okay.
now you really need to be almost 50% larger of a list
Yeah, like
than
16 to
what,
18,000
yeah,
records,
exactly,
kind
to
of on
get
a
down to that
minimum.
ideal. Yeah.
Okay.
So a
Wow.
long way to get around to what we're currently seeing in the space.
Yeah. Now, and just so I understand, Joe, I want to make sure I understand this correctly. Your clients do have the ability to sign a waiver of liability so that they can
Yeah.
still contact DNC if they want to.
Yes, they do.
Okay. I mean, I don't want to say cool, but like I know that's a big thing for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I mean, like, personally, I think it's fine. I think it's safe. It's legal. It's certainly legal. Like, we've spent thousands of dollars with our very experienced TCPA litigation lawyers who kind of have looked over all of our, done very comprehensive audits of all of our practices and provided advice. And they also say this is legal. The problem is in America, it doesn't matter if it's legal. It matters if somebody sues you. And so it's really a risk tolerance level. And some people have that risk because, frankly, here's the thing: land caller has made hundreds of millions of calls at this point. I don't, literally
What a
hundreds of
flex,
millions,
dude. Hundreds of
hundreds of
millions.
millions of calls. Okay. I can count on one hand the number of clients that have had suits threatened, and I can count on one finger the number of clients that have had to send any money to anybody, and nobody's ever gone to court. Okay. So that's over many hundreds of clients, hundreds of millions of calls. Those are the facts. However, it is becoming a much more litigious space. Some of the most litigious law firms, the super big class action law firms in the space, which previously, these are the kind that are like doing massive lawsuits against the American Realtors Association and stuff like that. They've now kind of discovered this space that they see as a way to get a lot of money. So both house wholesaling, house cold calling, and land are kind of moving into their sites. And that's why we're kind of taking the prudent step to default to safety, but allowing people the option of, hey, it's a numbers game. I understand I'm going to get more leads if I'm calling these people. I'm going to spend a little bit less on data because I don't have to pull as many records. And there's maybe less competition for those people because other people are not calling them. So yeah, we give our clients options. That's all we can do. We give them advice, options. We operate legally above the law in compliance, and we let them play by their big boy rules. And if they want to call, they want us to call them, we'll call them.
Man, the older I get, the more I realized how so it's interesting. I know I was telling you out in Colorado Joe, but we've been getting more into the curative title space. It's become a
Yeah.
very significant part of our real estate business now. And that means, assets are a little bit more agnostic. We're doing both houses and land at this point. But it's interesting because you learn how much of the law truly is gray, right? Like how it is gray and, at its core, when you go way back, the law is meant to protect people, right? So it's always so sad when you see people take advantage of the system for their own
Weaponize it.
personal gain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
weaponize it to the place where these class action attorneys are really going out of their way to harm small businesses because it lines their pockets, like so they can get another Rolls Royce and their third Rolex. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Exactly.
don't get me wrong, I've got a nice watch, all right, and I drive a Honda CRV, which is not a Rolls Royce, but it is paid off. I'll tell you, I bought it in cash, so do with that what you will. But I'm joking here, man. The point just being, it just like hurts my heart to hear stories like that because we're out here doing what we know is legal, compliant, and yeah, people are just weaponizing it, which sucks. Can we drill down, Joe? Let's start talking about lead flow, man. Like if I
Okay.
hire a caller with you, what should I expect in terms of lead flow? Either, obviously days are variable, weeks are kind of consistent, months are where
Yeah.
we really see some consistency, and then quarters are where I really see some consistency. So whatever metrics you want to give me, ranges, obviously
Yeah.
nothing's, guaranteed, but give me what you got. I give you a fresh list. We got a new caller. What's my timeline to start getting leads? And what does that lead flow look like for me?
Yeah, so timelines typically, typically as fast as you can get back to our onboarding team with things like your list or your criteria to pull a list, working on customizing your script, getting your sign off. Like these are the things you want us asking, right? We have, if you were just to like default to, hey, all of our suggestions are kind of recommended script and everything, it could be a few days until we're hitting, because we call the bullpen of kind of callers that are exiting probationary stage, ready to hit the phones that we can pull in
Okay.
if needed. So, um, in terms of what to expect, full size, fresh list and everything, you're typically going to average anywhere from 60 to 75 leads is kind of where a lot of our clients live in on a monthly basis. We have a two-step qualifying process, so it doesn't go like I think all of our competitors, to my knowledge, unless they've changed things based on hearing me talk. But like most people, their cold caller is the one inputting their lead directly to however they get it into their email, whatever. So what we do is a little bit different. It goes to a quality assurance team, which kind of scrubs that lead, make sure that it hits lead criteria, which means that they answered all the questions. They're genuinely interested in having a follow-up call, and there was no red flags like extreme sarcasm, stuff like that, right? So a
Okay.
certain amount of leads are being filtered out before they get then sent over to the clients directly into their CRM, which is where it goes after the QA is signed off on it.
Nice.
That's still real time, so that happens within a couple hours typically of or less if I'm when that phone call occurred. First week's your freshest data, you're always going to have the most lead flow. It could be as high as 20 to 30 leads, even higher. And then it's just going to slowly decrease from there as you've picked the lowest hanging fruit, and you're working your way through the list. And like I said
Yeah.
earlier, around the end of week 4 is kind of typically where we really start to see those KPIs dive. But
Okay.
we have indicators prior to that, which is why we'll typically approach and say, hey, let's start working on your next list
We're
around
getting
week 3,
stale.
4, because it's really just a matter of like efficiency of your caller's time. We can keep calling that list week 5 and we'll still get leads. It's just that they're going to be spinning their wheels at that point, dialing numbers that are just not picking up at this point in time. Now we come back for 6 months from now and call that list. Some of those people are going to pick up, but for whatever reason, over this month period, whatever's going on in their life, they're not picking up.
Yeah.
So 60 to 75 leads that meet criteria is typically what an average campaign is going to produce given a list, and that's into the CRM. So
Okay. Okay. That makes sense, man. And Joe, I think your video might be frozen. Do you want to try to like close your video and reopen it
yes,
real
I
quick?
just got a
You got this pose
Zoom.
like this right now, but can you see
I
me okay?
just I can hear you and everything.
Yeah, your audio is coming through just
I
fine.
just got a Zoom meetings error. Let me I can close this out and come back in 1 second.
Okay. All right. We'll still be live and we're here. But guys, if you didn't catch that as Joe was talking, so they go through several layers of qualification and you can end up with 50 to 70 leads per month. I typically see investors, assuming they're running our stuff, will connect with somewhere between 60 to 80% of those leads, try to make an offer to everybody. And somewhere around 1 in 10, 1 in 12 offers should get you a verbal. 1 in 20 definitely should get you a contract signed. So I would tell you in that list, you've got somewhere between like 1 and 4 contracts, depending on your spreads, your margins, your list, how good you are at sales. I understand that's quite a big range, but it really depends on, what it is you're doing. Joe, I've still got you on my screen. Are you still here? Oh, he's gone. He should come back here any second, guys. While we're waiting on him, if you have questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat. I'd love to see what's going through people. Yeah, Ronald, I think I just answered that. 30 to 50% is like pretty low, so probably even lower than what I was saying. I'd probably go up to like 70 if you're doing some double closes. If you're not, at least like 55 in today's market. Let's see. Mark said, thank you for that breakdown. You're very welcome, Mark. Guys, if you don't know too, Joe Roberts and Landcaller are actually going to be the platinum sponsor for the Land Scaling Summit. So Land Scaling Summit, September 19th and 20th here in Dallas. You can go to landscalingsummit.com to get that. But he is joining us again right here. So hopefully our internet is coming back stronger. Mr. Joe Roberts, are you here with us?
I'm here. I don't know what happened, but the app completely shut down. So now I joined in browser, but it also doesn't want to
It doesn't want to turn your video on.
Let's see.
Oh,
Let's see
it's
if
coming. Slowly, we're gray right now. But I'll tell you what, Joe, we do have your audio, so why don't we keep cranking
Okay.
it?
Yep.
What I'd love to know is let's start with some KPIs from the perspective of managing your callers. How do you know if a cold caller is being successful? Obviously, the desired end result is good quality leads pushed. What else are you looking for? How do you know how are you managing for success on your teams internally?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, there's a number of KPIs that you're going to look at to see kind of what a caller is doing. So, calls connected is a pretty big one. So that's how many times are they connecting with a real person on the phone, not a voicemail, and not an immediate hang up, but an actual person. So you typically want that to be anywhere from 200 to 300 calls connected per day. Now that can vary quite a bit. There's obviously nuance there. If somebody has a particularly long script, then they're going to be therefore on the phone with people a lot longer, which then decreases the number of future connections, right? But
Right.
you get more. So there's trade-offs there, but you
And
want
Joe,
a caller to ideally be between 200 and 300 calls connected per day.
wow, that's a lot.
It is. Yeah. So, and part of that gets into, well, a big part of that gets into, and this is a primary responsibility of a floor manager over a team of 12 callers. Is kind of how we have it broken down. A floor manager manages 12 callers, is going to be dialer settings, because there's a lot of the carriers, right? AT&T, Verizon, et cetera. They have a lot of spam tools out there now. So when you see spam, suspected spam show up on your handset, that's occurring typically because it's carrier flagged. And you have to be very careful in how you call in order to not get flagged as spam. And there's lots of stuff you do ahead of time in terms of whitelisting your numbers, registering them, re-registering them. But real time, you actually need a manager managing both your dialer settings and watching your KPIs, because a drop rate. So when I'm calling a multi-line dialer and I send 3 calls out at the same time, and Ajay, you pick up, and Bob Smith picks up, but he picks up a half second after you, it drops him. Okay. And that's your drop rate. If it gets too high, your number's automatically going to get flagged as spam. And so early in the day, you need to have lower dialer settings if you're not careful, because if that happens on your first call, you now have a 33% drop rate, right? Because you don't, right? So, and you're automatically going to start getting flagged. So that's the job of a floor manager, is to kind of dial those settings in and make sure that callers are adjusting them appropriately. But the real one that we look at for, is this caller doing a good job, is going to be calls connected. Because if they're having the conversations and they're not producing leads, we now know that this is probably more of a training issue. And that's where our quality assurance team is going to take a deep dive into that caller's performance, and specifically start listening to their calls, live or recorded, depending on the state, and figure out why aren't these connected calls converting into the leads at the ratio that they should be.
Okay. That's super helpful, man. That's insightful. It makes my head spin in the way that like I'm so glad I'm not running this.
Dude, it
Like
makes my head spin, and I own the company. I don't like, I know enough to like speak somewhat intelligently about it, but I am very much, the whole reason I started this was like, I want to hire really good people that know this stuff inside and out like the back of their hand, and just build a team, build a culture, give them a place to expand and work and grow. And that's what I've done. But I know enough, just enough to be dangerous. But dude, whenever I talk to my floor managers or my quality assurance team, like the amount of stuff they're doing, I'm just like, guys, it's crazy. And that's, I mean, that's what you're getting, right? That's what you're getting when you hire a professional service. Us, other, maybe other services out there do it in a similar way. And that's what I started to catch a glimpse of when I tried to bring it in house way back at the beginning. And I was like, I don't want to learn all this stuff. I just want to make like sweet deals on awesome pieces of land. I don't want to be managing the minutia of a dialer. So
absolutely not. Absolutely not. That is incredible. Um, because yeah, like I said, I don't, man, I don't want to do it, and I love that you know it well enough to dive in, but at the same time, um, you're not in it all day every day, right? Which is good. Otherwise, I think it'd be hard for you to be present for how many kids you got?
I got 6 kids.
Six and counting, or six?
Uh, I mean, we're Catholic, so probably in counting.
Sure, sure, sure. So are we, man. God bless. That's awesome. Okay, well, Joe, we're coming up close to the hour here, man. A couple of things. So, number one, how can people get a hold of you? How can people get started with Land Caller? I know we've got a custom link on our end that I can go ahead and drop in everything we're gonna post, but give us the goods, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the best way to get a hold of us is go through your link, wherever you have that, because you're going to get the onboarding fee waived. But if you just have questions about the services, you want to book a call, go to that link. They'll take you to our website, and then book a call with our head of sales, Madison. He's fantastic, fellow land investor, knows land inside and out as well, and he'll be able to. I mean, he'll jump on a call. He'll talk your ear off. So if you have a lot of questions, he's the guy. But he will give you any information that you want about. We're an open book. Like, it's all on our website. We're very transparent about our pricing. We're not one of those companies that's like, contact us for pricing. No, it's right there. You know what you're getting. You know what you pay for. We have very extensive FAQ section on the website as well. But some people, they've got those minutia details. They want to talk to another land investor. So that's why you can book a call with us.
That's fantastic, man. Yeah, we'll go ahead and grab that link. Anybody that definitely wants to check out their site or talk to their team, if you'll just drop the word caller in the comments, we'll make sure we DM it to you directly, but we're going to go ahead and find it and post it here in the next 10 minutes or so. But just so we don't lose it, we just comment the word caller. That doesn't bind you to anything. I'm just going to get you the link. That's it. I'm not going to lie, it's also good for the algorithm and engagement, so more people can learn about Joe's beautiful business here. Guys, another thing I want to add is I said it while Joe, you were down for a second, you had some downtime there. But Land Caller is our platinum sponsor for the Land Scaling Summit. So if you're a land investor out there, you want to shake Mr. Joe Roberts' hand, you want to see us in person, I'm going to be interviewing him live, and we're going to get to another level of depth in person together. We're going to be talking even more about Land Caller, what it can do. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be in a room of 175 people here in Dallas, September 19th and 20th. Come
Gonna be
on
awesome.
out.
Can't
These guys
wait.
are the platinum sponsor. It's going to be awesome. These guys are sponsoring the VIP and the entire event, so it's going to be a really, really good time. Joe, before we get out of here, man, any last thoughts or words of wisdom for all the investors that have tuned in here?
All I will say is like back to the point of like we want our clients to be successful. Give us a shot if you're interested, but understand like cold calling leads is not for everybody. There is a you have to be able to follow a pretty specific sales process afterwards, which obviously Ajay's like you've built an entire system to do that. It's perfect. But
Right.
there are people out there that hate being on the phone. They haven't either gotten around to hiring or they don't want to hire somebody to do it for them. There are other lead generation methods that are going to be better for their businesses. So, but if you are somebody that likes that negotiation and you're willing to do kind of the stuff that Ajay teaches about lead follow up, it really is, I think, still, even though it's grown a lot since I launched this company, a still fairly undiscovered place. And the amount of people that you can reach that are not going to respond via text. Maybe you're reaching them on a landline. They don't respond to mailers because all their mail just goes in the trash. There's a significant amount of really good leads out there for this kind of platform.
I love it, man. Cold calling is what I see every seven-figure investor I know, except for maybe a handful that are doing. There's cold texting, but man, there's only so much you can control in texting. It goes down, softwares change, stuff is wild. Compliance is a little bit more gray than it is with cold
Yeah.
calling. In my understanding, I'm not an attorney, and this is not legal advice, right? But cold calling is what I see everybody crushing with, man, whether it's outsourced or in-house. I see people doing really, really well with it. If you don't want the headaches of doing it in-house, which I wouldn't, I'd recommend reaching out to Joe and his team. I already see a couple of comments for caller. Again, if you guys are interested in connecting with Joe's team, learning more about land caller, just drop the word caller. We will send you that link so you've got it available. You can book a call with their team, figure out if it's right for your biz. Joe, thank you so much for being here, man. I appreciate the time. I'm looking forward to getting to hang out here next month. And
Yeah, man. It's
there's
going to
ever
be
anything
great.
I can do, man, feel free to holler at me, but it's always good connecting.
Sounds good. Thanks,
Sweet.
Ajay. Thanks for having me on. See you next month.
Yes, sir. See you, Joe.